over to Steve. Thanks, Steve.
Yeah, thanks, Lynn. Good morning, everybody. And it's really my pleasure to be here and support what's happening, what the compassionate people are doing here in Ballarat. We've been supporters of Compassionate Ballarat for some time now and look forward to continuing that support. Community banking is
Steve,
a kind of different sort of banking
Steve, can I just say,
from.
could you just speak up a little bit? Sorry. Yeah, I'm just not getting a clear sound.
Is that better?
That's better.
How's
I
that?
can hear. Yeah, a little bit.
That's
Yeah,
about as good as I can make it with my home IT skills.
just yeah.
All
No,
right.
that's better.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, yeah, community banking a bit different from other forms of banking that most people are used to. Our business model is about um, shared value, creating value in our business and then sharing that with our communities. So, from that perspective, community banking is kind of, I guess, a real positive solution for the kinds of issues that are going on in society at the moment. Um, Thinking about what we're doing in our branch, Lynn, I've got about 8 or 9 minutes. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
right.
So thinking about what's going on in our branch, banking has been considered to be an essential service by governments, rightly so, because customers are concerned about their financial situation and need support. They may need access to banking staff to make changes to their financial arrangements. And so it's really important that the branch is available for everybody to access. And by our, I don't just mean our branch, I mean all bank branches all around the country. In our particular branch in Buninyong, of course, we've been implementing social distancing measures. We've got safety screens and all the kinds of things that are necessary. And it's about keeping our staff safe, but also about keeping their morale up and their confidence up so that they're there, they can be there to support customers. The Bendigo Bank has a range of guidelines for what to do if, and we're following those kinds of things. Staff hygiene and safety is really important. We're working to support staff members who need to be at home to homeschool their kids. We've made increased holiday allowances for that, and that's working really well. At the community banks are known for being open on Saturdays as opposed to some of the other banks, and at the moment we've taken the decision at Buninyong to close on Saturday mornings just to give the staff the opportunity to take a deep breath and recharge their batteries so they can get back to working and supporting community next week. So that's a temporary thing. When the virus shutdowns are all over, then we'll go back to being open again on Saturday mornings. The branch staff generally are working hard to support customers' expectations around changes to their finances. And so probably half of what they do on a daily basis these days is focused on just supporting customers through the COVID activities. And they're doing whatever they can to provide that support. I had an interesting experience with one of our customers talking to her the other day, who explained that she'd had a terrific response from the branch staff, and the manager had said, "Yeah, you're very welcome. Of course, that's what we need to do. We'll work to do whatever we can, except we won't look after your children for you." And I guess that sort of outlines the idea that, look, they're really there to help. So I guess the biggest message that I can deliver to anybody worried about their finances and banking and all the rest of it is call your manager, whoever it is. Just call them and say, you've got these issues, what can we do? Um, in respect of the general banking products activity, some people, I imagine that everybody is quite aware of the government's um, announcements around social safety nets with the job seeker, job keeper payments and all those sorts of things. One thing that has been introduced just last week, which people may not be aware of, is a new package of support for small and medium enterprises. So a new loan arrangement for SMEs that are struggling with virus responses. Um, if anyone's in an SME that needs some specific uh, business support, go to your bank, have a look on their website, check out the newly announced, only last week announced packages around SMEs, and maybe again phone your manager. Generally speaking, there are heaps of websites out there that can inform businesses and individuals about the financial situation. And I would recommend uh, two government ones, the ATO. Kind of funny to be talking about, yeah, get in touch with the tax office. But the tax office's website is really helpful and provides uh, information around the financial support for businesses and employers and the financial support for individuals and employees. And there's quite well explained information and links to other government sites on the ATO's website. The Australian Banking Association, which is the overarching body that represents all the banks around Australia, has a great website. It outlines personal assistance measures, business assistance measures, landlord assistance measures. And I guess one of the interesting things that's happened as a result of the virus is that the ACCC has relaxed its surveillance of collaboration between competitors. And through that relaxation, the ABA, the Australian Bankers Association, has been able to get together and agree on a range of measures and packages which are useful to all customers around Australia. So I would encourage anybody to have a look at the ABA's website, which is, what's it called? Hmm, lost it. Anyway, just Google ABA, you'll find that. Um, and lastly, look at if you're not banking with a community bank, look up your own bank's website. In the case of community banks, the Bendigo Bank website is excellent in respect of information about packages and support activities and all the rest of it for the virus period. And you should definitely, maybe as a first step before talking to your bank manager, have a look on their website. In general, of course, there's deferral of loan and insurance payments available. Waiving of fees and charges is available. There's debt consolidation. Um, New business loan interest rates have been reduced just recently as well. So there are a whole range of areas where, and again, the ATO and ABA's website will talk you through those. But there are a whole range of financial plans available for people to access who are suffering from financial hardship at this time. One thing that Bendigo Bank's done, which I think is unique, and one of the areas that people have been concerned about, is when payments on loans are deferred, they still accrue interest, and people have been concerned about having to pay interest upon interest. So Bendigo has actually initiated a program where they will make a payment into your account for interest that's being accrued on the interest that you're not paying. So that's an element of compassion, I think, Lynn, that is demonstrating that we in particular and banks in general are certainly there and trying hard to provide support to community. In an overall sense, it's important, I think, not to panic in terms of the banking industry. People need to recognise that the banking sector, although the Hayne Royal Commission pointed out many very bad areas of behaviour in the big four banks in particular, the banking sector, notwithstanding the Hayne Royal Commission, has become much stronger financially since the global financial crisis, and their common equity ratios are very much stronger, in some cases double what they were at the time of the GFC. So fears of liquidity and support of customers for the banks are ill-founded. There should be no concern around banks' abilities to support individuals and businesses through this activity. So that's in a general sense, the bank's liquidity positions are very strong. Furthermore, the government's social welfare package has been, I think, amazingly generous for a Liberal government. It's very widespread and very generous and will provide an enormous level of support to community members, which will mean, I think, less individual pressure on banks to provide that kind of support. And finally, in the general sense, of course, we've got record interest rates prevailing at the moment, and that is likely to be the new normal for many years to come. So it's never been cheaper to borrow money. Of course, difficult to repay money if you haven't got a job, get that. But for those who are in the position who need to borrow money, then it's never been a cheaper time to do it than now. I guess that's kind of my overview, Lynn, and I didn't want to go into specific products and services and of course all of the information about the how-to and what are the packages are available on those websites I mentioned. So I think maybe it's best to go to there. Happy to respond to questions.
So thank you, Steve. Yeah, it's really reassuring, to hear you say that the banks are in a good position and our government, has really supported the rest, those that are in need in our society. So we really are in one of the best positions, I'd say, around the world at the moment, and to really be able to come back into life following this. But as we were talking about before, that this would be a really missed opportunity if we just go back to the ways we were. And I just see a question from Mary Hollick saying, has the combination of the Banking Royal Commission and COVID-19 changed your thinking about the role of banking in our society?
That's an interesting question, and certainly the role of banks in society is very much, I think, worthy of examination. In our case, as a community banker, our role has always been to support community. So we have a shared value business model. The profit that we make in our bank is given back to community. 90% of the profit that we earn in our bank is literally given back to community. This year alone, the Buninyong and District Community Bank will be making donations of around $400,000 to community enterprises around the Buninyong and Ballarat district. So it's about sharing the value that we generate and building community, contributing to the growth and prosperity of our communities. We are looking at different ways of sharing it. The ways we would have supported schools or sports clubs or other social enterprises around our area may be different because of the virus environment. And so there might be new ways of spending that money, if you want to call it that. But our basic philosophy hasn't changed. It's always been make the profit in the bank so we can give it back to the community, and that's what we're determined to continue to do. Thanks for the question, though.
And another one from Denise saying, very reassuring, and she knows that the Buninyong District Community Bank supports, huge numbers of grassroots projects every year. So have you noticed any changes or increase in requests this year?
We've been in active contact with many of our previous grant recipients. And maybe it's a little bit early for those previous recipients to kind of understand the situation going forward. So, for example, sports clubs are basically non-existent anymore. They're not meeting, they're not getting together at the pub or the bar or whatever. So sports clubs are having difficulty understanding what they want to do and whether they've got the funds for it and that kind of thing. So that's kind of an on-hold situation. Schools, we support a number of schools in our area, and of course, again, schools are really badly disrupted. We do a lot of work with schools in respect of supporting youth development, leadership development, and that kind of stuff. And because in the main they're working from home, again, the funding activity with schools is a little bit on hold because schools basically aren't sure about when they're going to be actually back together again and all that kind of stuff. We had anticipated when the lockdown commenced, prior to the government's JobKeeper and JobSeeker announcements, we did anticipate that there might be a higher level of hardship at schools in particular, schools being where potentially lots of families congregate. Speaking for Buninyong, there's about 650 children at the Buninyong Primary School, about 420 families from memory. And it was a reasonable expectation that a number of those families might be suffering from hardship. And so we were thinking in terms of some community investment responses around alleviating hardship. But the reality is the government's policies with JobKeeper and JobSeeker and the superannuation drawdown activity, the opportunity for people to draw down some of their super, really has meant that the community at large, and of course there are areas of disadvantage and distress, but in the main the community at large has not, in our experience, been so badly impacted. So the ideas that we had around direct support for community investment of hardship at school populations are pretty much on hold.
Yeah, and you mentioned that, just if you've got any worries at all, to pick up the phone and contact the bank. But I wondered, for people that are really stressed and have been particularly badly hit, losing jobs with children at home, are the banks being proactive in how they reach out to those people to offer them rather than expecting that they'll come in as such?
Not that I'm aware of. They are well established in respect of uh, hardship teams. Um, I know, and again, I can't speak for, say, Westpac or somebody else, but in respect of Bendigo and the community bank networks, there are established hardship teams, so that those team members are well versed on the potential issues around individual or business hardships, and how to be able to
Mm.
respond to them. Um,
Okay,
Given that
that's
we
really
have,
good.
in Buninyong Community Bank, we have about 5,000 customers, and we have, at any one time about 5 staff members in the branch. Pretty hard, excuse me, it's pretty hard for those branch members to reach out to 5,000 customers. Are you okay? It is
Mm.
more about uh, getting the message out to people to say, we really are here to help, and please contact us if you've
Mm.
got issues.
That's right.
Because
Well, that is the reaching out. Yeah, that is the reaching out, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah, no, excellent. Yeah, well, yeah, that's been very helpful and um, yeah, just reassuring. I suppose just perhaps the last question is, what are the things that you would like to see, um, to like for us all to take back, or bounce forward with in when that happens? What are the things that we might be able to really consider and reflect on, that we want to take back from
from my
your perspective
perspective,
in
yeah,
terms of,
okay. Well,
yeah.
that's great question. Thanks, Lynn. Um, I'd like people, pretty much going back to Mary's question about, you know, has has something changed after, post Hayne Royal Commission, and post COVID, you know, how will banking be different? And I'd like people, gen generally speaking, to think about that and consider how they can participate as society members in building a stronger society. Um, and one way you can do that without without making donations and without being a volunteer in an enterprise or anything like that is to change your banking. Change from the big four or whoever you're with, and go to a community bank. Um, the, the the money that's the profit that's earned in the community bank doesn't go to Collins Street or Martin Place, and doesn't go to enrich shareholders or a superannuation fund. It goes to enrich society where you live, and it's a terrific way, I think, for people to contribute to a stronger, um, more harmonious, more robust community is by just moving their banking,
Mm.
and whether it's to Bunnings Community Bank or any other
Yeah,
community bank,
yeah, yeah. Well, that,
the community that you want to support, move it to there.
mm, I think how we build our communities is really an important, um, consideration for us all. Yeah, yeah.
And the community
Thank you,
bank
Steve.
is
That's been
always
really,
open to,
yeah,
not application, inquiries from the community at large.
yeah,
Ways
absolutely.
that individuals or organisations in the community can see that the provision of a little bit of funding might make a change in a particular area. We're always open to conversation around providing funds to support a community development activity. So
Yeah, okay. Yes, that's
I
right.
encourage
Yeah.
people to
Well,
get in touch with the Buninyong Community Bank or the Creswick one or Beaufort or wherever your community bank is near, and talk to the people there about what kind of support that community bank can contribute to
yes.
building the community in your area.
Great. Yeah, that's a great conversation to have. Thank you so much, Steve. That's been wonderful. Um, as with all these webinars, we finish with some mindful resources. And today I thought, rather than doing a practice, that I would share with you um, some information from Professor Elizabeth Blackburn, who was the first Australian woman to win the Nobel Prize for Medicine. And she won it for her work on telomeres. So telomeres are the caps of our chromosomes. And when we're strong, when we're healthy, those telomeres are strong and long. And when we're stressed and not well, and when we're aging, those telomeres can fray and be short. But she won the Nobel Prize for discovering that telomere damage can be reversed, and it can be reversed, you know, in the ways we look after ourselves. And that stress is one of the major factors that cause telomere damage. So in her book, The Telomere Effect, she was saying that she states that our mental focus is a skill that we need to cultivate, and that while stress is unavoidable, we can learn the skills to manage our stress. And one of the best ways of doing that is through self-awareness. So when we get angry or anxious, you know, that thought awareness is the ability to stop and reflect and ask, what is triggering me? When does it happen? And what sets me off? And she also says we shouldn't underestimate the challenge of thought awareness practices, because our brain is very active and we are not in control of generating the thoughts. They just automatically come. And so it's a really big challenge, because she estimates that we have around 65,000 thoughts per day. And practicing thought awareness allows us to ask, how many of these thoughts are serving me, and how many of these thoughts are causing me harm? And of course, the real skill is then to stop and let go of those thoughts that don't serve us. So she also says that our daily habits are really vital. And I remember listening to a lecture that she gave when I was down at Melbourne Uni, and she talked about a really good habit to have every day is to say to yourself, I have another, I'll just bring it up. I have another day of precious human life. I am not going to waste it. So I have a little sticky note next to my computer, and every day I read that. So I'm reminded that I have another day of precious human life. I am not going to waste it. So thanks to everyone for joining us today. And our next speaker, I just want to let you know that our next speaker is Dr. Evita March from Fed Uni, who researches social media. And she'll be speaking about managing the good and bad of social media in these times of isolation. And she'll also be reflecting on why cyberbullying and hacking have so vastly increased over the last 6 weeks. So thank you so much, everyone, and thank you again, Stephen. And look forward for everyone to be join us next week. Thank you very much. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye.
Good.